Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your hosts on the path of quirky revengeance.
I am John.
And I'm CC. And when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today I will kick off the show by time traveling to the glorious past of 2005, joining a motorcycle gang of delinquents and witnessing the main character of Tokyo Revengers doing his darndest to change his life for the better and to save the life of his ex-girlfriend. And after all that crazy nonsense, John and I will maybe, probably, eventually butt heads as we return to a familiar world of heroes and villains to discuss the events of My Hero Academia Season 5.
I could say it's going to be a little bit of a civil war.
Yeah, John has a bone to pick with the show, so we'll see what happens there. So put on your cape and cowl, please don't forget your motorcycle helmet for safety, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. Takemichi Hanagaki's second year of middle school was the highest point in his life. He had respect, a gang of friends he could count on, and even a girlfriend. But that was 12 years ago. Today he's a nobody, a washed-up non-entity made fun of by children and always forced to apologize to his younger boss. A sudden news report on the Tokyo Manji gang's cruel murder of the only girlfriend he ever had, alongside her brother, only adds insult to injury. Half a second before a train ends his pitiful life for good, Takemichi flashes back to that same day 12 years ago when he was still dating Hinata Tachibana. After being forced to relive the very same day that began his downward spiral, Takemichi meets Hinata's younger brother. Without thinking, he admits to his seeming death before flashing back to the past. Takemichi urges him to protect his sister before inexplicably returning to the future. Miraculously, he isn't dead. Stranger still, the future has changed. It seems as though Takemichi can alter the flow of time. Given the chance to prevent his ex-girlfriend's tragic death at the hands of the Tokyo Manji gang, Takemichi decides to fly through time to change the course of the future. So yeah, Tokyo Revengers is based on a manga by Ken Wakui that started in 2017, currently lists 24 volumes and is still running, but is apparently in its final arc. So maybe manga and anime are trying to end at the same time. We'll see. The anime has covered 2 arcs so far with this season, so we'll see. I think there are 3 or 4 left, so we'll see what happens there. Wakui also created a manga called Shinjuku Swan, which is set in Shinjuku's red light district and about a talent scout butting heads with the Yakuza. So setting-wise, the man seems to always dabble in the kinda same-ish territory as in gangs and crime drama, for now anyway. So I guess him and Toshiro Nagoshi, who created the Yakuza game series, would have a lot to talk about. At least it feels like they're kind of venturing in the same territory. The manga also got an anime adaptation in April 2021, which we will talk about today. The first season has 24 episodes. We also got a live-action movie in July 2021, a spin-off manga called Todai Revengers, and a series of SD anime shorts released on YouTube called Chibireve. And the main anime adaptation was handled by Leiden Films. We have talked about them several times on this show, and they are a bit of a mixed bag. Their adaptation of Heroic Legend of Arslan definitely had its moments, but often suffered from stiff animation and really bad CG. Killing Bites looked like cheap trash, and story-wise it definitely was, but got elevated by Yasuto Nishikata directing the fuck out of it. And Hanebad was a downright riveting character drama with stellar animation and one of the worst cliffhanger endings of all time. So you really don't know what you'll get regarding animation or anything else really when tuning into a Leiden Films show. John, I think you talked about Boarding School Juliet in passing. I don't know how the animation on that was, or at least I don't remember.
I mean, it was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about, but I wasn't visibly repulsed by any of it.
Yeah, I was visibly repulsed by most of what I've seen from them, though, like I said, Arslan had some very, very spotty scenes in there where it's like there are too many moving pieces here and the animators definitely can't handle that. And the CG animators especially can't. So, yeah.
I think they also worked on Magical Girl Spec Ops Asuka, and
Oh, right.
my problem with that show was, ow, the edge.
Yeah. We got some edge in this show, let me tell you. But, not that kind of edge. Also, none of the aforementioned shows got finished or any continuation whatsoever, which is especially egregious in Hannibal's case. So this has me quite worried for Tokyo Revengers, because, like I said, the story isn't finished. So far, they've only covered the first 2 arcs in this adaptation. And in every other aspect, I guess, sadly, Tokyo Revengers is not Hanabat, especially not in the animation department. For most of its runtime, the animation is very mediocre, which is fine, I guess, since the show is focusing on dialogue more than anything else. But it becomes a problem when fists are being thrown, which also happens on a regular basis. Most of these fight scenes just feel really stiff and weightless, which you don't want to see in a hard-hitting crime drama with motorcycle gangs beating the ever-loving shit out of each other. It's also not directed super interestingly. It feels very TV drama in all aspects of its production. Like, if it wasn't so edgy in certain parts and so very Japanese, you could imagine it as a CW show or something like that. Or, a more flat Sons of Anarchy, which is one of the things. I mean, I've never watched Sons of Anarchy because I'm not interested in that particular thing that it's trying to do. But this show is kind of erased by way of Sons of Anarchy, I would say. So this kind of fits. But yeah, the director is Koichi Hatsumi, who also directed Deadman Wonderland, Gangsta, the Kyoto arc of Blue Exorcist, and the first of the 3 Berserk movies. And weirdly enough, these are all projects that felt a bit mishandled. Manglob's animation of both Deadman Wonderland and Gangsta couldn't keep up with the frenetically directed action and looked often pretty stiff as well. Same goes for the animation direction of that particular season of Blue Exorcist. And the first Berserk movie definitely has some interesting shots in it, but suffers from looking like ass anytime it was not traditionally animated, which was about 95% of its runtime. So I don't know if Hatsumi has a hand for picking problematic projects or if he is part of the reason they don't look particularly great. That being said, we get about 3 episodes out of Tokyo Revengers 24 that look really good, both in the character animation department, but also in regards to well-directed and animated fight scenes with a lot of oomph. So it's better than nothing, I guess. Yeah, a real high point of the show is the soundtrack, though, which is handled by Hiroaki Tsutsumi, who I have to mention every time I review a show that he has composed the music for, because his soundtracks are always fucking bangers. Ahiro no Sora, Dr. Stone, Jujutsu Kaisen, and this one are definitely up there as some of my favorite anime OSTs in existence. I would put him right up there with Sawano Hayashi, Kato, Kano, Kajiura, Suihiro, and all my other favorite composers in the anime sector. So, yeah, this soundtrack is great. Hard-hitting rock tracks, but also tracks filled with subtle melancholy and high drama, and of course your goofy comedy tracks. It's all there. I love it. I also really like the OP, Crybaby, by Official Hige Dandism. I don't know. I don't fucking know. It's a great track that really fits Takemichi's character. Now, story-wise, like I said, this is kind of erased by way of Sons of Anarchy. Meaning, we have Takemichi, who has this ostensibly shitty life. I mean, he has a steady job, apparently, unless he doesn't do his fucking work, which sometimes he fails as too. But he's like living in a shitty apartment that is filled to the brim with trash. He's just watching TV. He has no girlfriend, which is apparently, according to the show, the worst thing in the fucking universe. He's still a virgin, which he loves to complain about a lot. And
oh no, anyway.
First world problems. That's how we meet him. So it doesn't make necessarily the best first impression, and also relates to the opening Crybaby. It's like, cry me a river, bitch. So when he sees on TV that his former high school love, Hina, and her brother have been killed in an incident, facilitated by the Tokyo, I think their full name is Tokyo Manjiro gang, but they're just shortened to Toman, and they're this very big Tokyo gang of, basically Yakuza, who have their hands in everything shady, really. And apparently, for some reason, they crashed a fucking truck into a restaurant that Hina was working in. And yeah, she died, and her brother was there apparently as well. So we don't really know why that happened, but Takemichi Lansat together with us through the TV, and it's like, fuck, this is horrible. And he's kind of surprised. All right, Hina, I haven't thought of her in ages. I haven't even thought about high school in ages. I just remember it being the height, my best life ever, because I was king shit of fuck mountain, right? I was the coolest dude. I had a girlfriend. It was the high time of my life. And then he goes on his usual workday and then gets pushed in front of a train by an unknown assailant and ostensibly dies. But then he wakes up in the past. On the same day, basically 12 years ago, on the dot, and is back in middle school and is experiencing life anew and has to get has basically to get accustomed again with that.
Imagine getting isekai'd back to your own world. Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's funny, the summary I just read, which I nicked from my anime list, just for transparency's sake, makes it sound like he was the coolest guy in high school, which, as it turns out, he definitely was not. One of the first
shock.
Yeah, one of the first things he remarks on when he takes a look at himself in the mirror in the past is how lame his outfit is. He's got this blonde pompadour delinquent haircut, these baggy pants, and just a white shirt. And he's like, holy shit, I look like an ass. So he definitely remembered it differently and very quickly has to face reality that his life was actually pretty shit back then as well. I mean, he had some good friends and everything, so that was nice. And they drifted away after school, so his life got definitely shittier in that regard. But, he was not the super cool guy his memory made him think he was. So it's already this nice comment on how nostalgia can fuck with your brain because you hate your current life, which I appreciated a lot, because in the first couple of minutes of the first episode, I was ready to jump ship. Like I said, he complains about how his life was better when he was in high school and that he hasn't had a girlfriend since then, that he's still a virgin, a complete loser, working a normal retail job. When in high school he got it all figured out. So I was like, oh no, this is gonna be a simple wish fulfillment story along the lines of, I'm gonna go back in time, become a badass delinquent with my future knowledge, get back my girlfriend, and finally get laid. Hell yeah! And it's partially that, which is where my main problem with the story lies. But in many ways, it also isn't that at all, which made me stick with it. So, in the beginning, like the first episode, he relives one of the worst days in his life in middle school in 2005, where he and his delinquents, or wannabe delinquent friends, got beaten up by the same gang, some from the lower tiers of that gang, that will kill his now girlfriend or future ex-girlfriend in 12 years. So that's how he got acquainted with that gang. And then basically what happened in the previous version of his past is they were kind of slaves for that gang for the rest of his school life. They had to do like shitty odd errands, jobs like that, had to clean up for them, they had to give them all their food and shit like that. So they were just basically bullied for the rest of their school days by this gang. So he relives that day when that started. Again, it is reminded how shitty that life actually was. His life actually was from that moment on, which he kind of seems to have repressed. And I say middle school, but this is anime. So all the middle schoolers look like they're in their mid-20s or 30s. Like 12-year-olds with tattoos on their faces and necks. Sure. Fucking motorcycle super gangs with muscles up their ass. I don't fucking know.
Didn't you know middle school is just a training ground to become a Yakuza tough?
Yes, apparently. This show makes that very clear. It made me laugh in a lot of parts when they try to come across as like the super strong artists and they're 10 feet tall guys. And it's like, come on, what are you doing?
God damn it. Now all I'm thinking of is the stupid shit from Cromartie High School.
Oh yeah, I mean, Cromartie High School had a lot of delinquents in there as well, right? So that figures.
Everyone was.
There you go. But you know, Cromartie painted that as a comedy and hilarious inconsistency from the get-go. This doesn't really. Although these characters look still younger than the high schoolers from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusade. I mean, Jotaro doesn't fucking look. How old is he supposed to be?
Shut up. He's 17, I think.
Right.
Shut up.
That 30-year-old, 17-year-old man. Whatever.
but you can't let him see him smoking on TV. Oh, no.
So it's kind of in that vein. Some are more ridiculous than others. Like there's this guy who's fucking great, Hanma, who comes in a bit later in the story, who is this weird, crazy person with always this creepy smile on his face. And on the one hand, he has the kanji for sin, and on his other hand, the kanji for punishment. So I must assume he really loves that N64 game. Otherwise, I can't take him seriously. Although Takuya Eguchi definitely has a lot of fun playing a complete lunatic this time around. So I'll give him props for that and that character too. So yeah, you know, it's crazy shit like that. It's a real tough guys. And then you have characters who really look a lot younger than the others, even though they're supposed to be in the same grade. It's funny. But yeah, so that's part of the whole setting, I guess. And once Takemichi is basically put back there, he remembers, oh yeah, life was shit back then as well. And I didn't stand up to those guys and everything got shittier and shittier. So he's full of regrets. And he visits Hina's home ostensibly for one last time. And then by chance runs into her brother, Naoto. Saves Naoto from some punks and tells him to always protect his sister or he and his sister will die. Just comes out, right out and says it. It's like, hey, I know shit from the future. You and your sister will die in 12 years, so please be on the lookout and protect her. And shakes his hand, and then suddenly Takemichi wakes up back in a hospital bed in 2017 and is greeted by Naoto. And apparently changed the past. And Naoto is still alive, but Hina apparently is not, because despite his knowledge that something might happen, Naoto wasn't able to protect her. So now he asks Takemichi, so apparently you can travel through time. We have to figure out how that happens. And also, we need to find a way to save my sister. And that's what they do. And we quickly find out that Takemichi's powers are activated every time he shakes hands with Naoto. For some reason, we don't know why, but that's what happens. So every time they shake hands in the future, Takemichi travels back to the past. Every time he shakes hands with Naoto in the past, he travels back to the future. That is basically what this show becomes. Both Takemichi and Naoto kind of have to investigate the Toman gang and how all the bad shit that led to Hina's death happened and what they could do to change these events and maybe lead it all in a different direction. And then they try some things and some things work out. And of course, others don't. And then things change in ways that they couldn't have anticipated. So Takemichi has to go back in time and change things again. So things get more and more weird and unforeseeable and convoluted and fucked up. So it really keeps you on your toes and them on their toes as well. And I thought it was interesting that, you know, it's not just Takemichi going back into the past and changing things there, although that is the main bulk of the story. But we also have a bit of investigation in our current time, in the future, where it's like where they have to stick basically their heads together and figure out, okay, what changed? What did we miss? What could we do to change it more and make it better? And I like this. I like this that it's a bit of a parallel thing, except for Takemichi traveling once to the past and then this whole story being just there. And also it leads to some fun situations where he doesn't intend to shake Naoto's hand and just time travels again. It's like, Jesus, fuck, it's not that complicated. Look what you're doing. But yeah, I like that the mechanics behind this. After meeting Naoto in the future for the first time, and then traveling to the past for a second time, Takemichi lives through another torturous day in the past where he's beaten into a bloody pulp, and he's ready to throw in the towel. He's like, I can't change this. I can't do this. I'm just too weak. I'm a fucking loser. I can't help her. I can't I'm just incapable. I am a weak sauce bitch. And then he encounters Hina and has a talk with his friends, and that makes him change his mind. So when his friend is about to be taking a beating in the gang's fight club that they're basically now have to partake in because they're now basically the slaves and errand boys of the lower echelon of the Toman gang, Takemichi tries to overcome his fear and challenges the leader of the gang to a fight, which is a pretty badass scene. You know, at that point you think, oh, well, he might be signing his death warrant, but he knows it. And he has realized he needs to change, not only to save Hina, but also to save his friends and himself. And he has like this badass line after getting like punched in the face a lot, which is what mostly happens to him in this series. That is basically what he is there for, because he's not a good fighter. That's also one of the cool things, actually, and we'll get to that later. But, you know, he's basically a punching bag because he is not good at this shit, and he is kind of a weakling, but that's fine. And he has to find a different way to make things happen his way. So when he gets punched in the face by this super psychotic asshole who also then wants to beat the shit out of him with a baseball bat, he's like, this beating isn't enough to cure my weak heart of the past 12 years. If you want to beat me, you have to actually kill me. And it's like, oh, holy shit. There's some fire in there. So yeah, I like that.
You love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, oh, okay, there is a hidden badass here, just in a different way. You know, not in your classic, oh, he's a super fighter. No, there's just, he has a very strong will if he finds the courage to actually search for it. So yeah, that is one of the inciting moments that changes everything, because just when that scene happens, the two top dogs of Toman appear on the scene. And those are their leader, their commander, Sano, or Mikey as he is called, and his second in command, Draken. And these two basically take a liking in Takemichi, because Mikey sees that he stands up to this guy who's like, I don't know, at least twice as tall as him, and just takes the punishment and just doesn't let go. And he's like, oh, that is an interesting dude, and he can take some shit. So I'm going to become his friend. And that's what happens. So Mikey really becomes friends with Takemichi. Not that Takemichi has any say in that. It's just Mikey decides that on his own. Oh, we're friends now. And you belong now to my group. And it's like, he's kind of like, what the fuck is happening? This is also sometimes a very funny show. There's some good jokes in there and definitely some top tier reaction phases. So that is when that comes into play. And yeah, this is basically then what happens. This is our main dynamic. Takemichi basically becoming friends with Mikey and with Draken, and then basically slowly finding his way, rising to power in Toman, though through unusual means, not by beating the shit out of everybody, but by standing up to certain moments and standing up for his friends and being the guy who just is left standing and who tries everything, even though things seem like they're hopeless. And that is really cool, and that is the main drive kind of the story. And the characters, you know, are not these flat, I won't say typical delinquents type. I mean, there are a lot of those in there. The show always walks a tightrope act between showing the dark sides of gang life and idealizing it. It's pretty much like the Yakuza series, and every time it tries to give the gang culture this air of knightly code or brotherhood, that rubs me the wrong way. Because if you're honest, these are all assholes who beat each other up and terrorize weaker people, if it gets down to it, you know. They always try to paint it in a more noble way than it actually is. It's all about freedom. It's all about, you know, being rebels and badasses. But no, you're just being assholes, really, when it comes down to it.
But Kazuma Kiryu's a hero. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy. I mean, they kind of, in Yakuza, they kind of get out of it by making Kiryu being a civilian, having left the Yakuza circuit. So they kind of cheat by not being an official Yakuza anymore. At least in Zero. I don't know if after that he rejoins the organization. I've only played parts of Zero and that's it. But it's still like, even the other Yakuza that you encounter, it's always like this, like him having an admiration for his mentor and everything. And it's the same in Judgment on all that stuff. It's like, he was such a great guy and he took care of me. But your gang just, they steal, they deal drugs, they're in real estate scams and shit like that. Yeah, but
shut up though.
But shut up though. It's always, it tries to gloss over that these are all criminals,
Yeah.
It's and that happens in this show as well.
Crime dramas are weird.
Yeah, you have to make these people sympathetic, but for that you really have to paint over certain things. Mikey is a bit of a sadist, like especially when it comes to guys that are, a bit weaker than him and try to speak up to him, try to be cocky assholes. And it's okay that he puts them in their place, especially if they were assholes as well, but he takes a bit too much joy in that. So it's like, okay, it's fine. He's only being a sadist asshole towards punks that piss him off, and he doesn't necessarily seem to be a bad guy. He had a bigger brother that he says Takemichi reminds him of, and he has like apparently this grand plan to change what current delinquents and biker gangs are in Japan, and because he doesn't like that they kind of fell from grace, whatever that means. And Draken always speaks of this true way of the delinquent. What the fuck is he even talking about? I don't know. It's just, it's like this, we are actually knights in this, the dark nights of Japan or shit like that. And that is always nonsense to me, because when it comes down to it, you're all dumb teenagers who try to be badasses, who try to just fuck the rules, fuck the police, man. And I know there's some bigger cultural reason for that, because, Japan was maybe very oppressive in a certain time frame when it came to how it was treating its youth, and that was kind of the counter reaction to that. I haven't really read up on my gang history, Japanese gang history, but I vaguely remember from my studies that that's one of the things that happened. So I get it. I understand it. It doesn't mean I sympathize with these factions, especially not people trying to completely paint them in this glorious light and having like this huge nostalgia boner for it, where say, yeah, those were the days when men were men and they rode their bicycles and they had their broads like pining for them, and we're like, Jesus fucking Christ, grow up. So on the surface you would think this show isn't for me, because like I said, I wouldn't even want to get into Sons of Anarchy. I zoned out of the Yakuza games after the middle or the first third of Yakuza 0, which apparently is the strongest one story-wise, or one of the strongest ones. So, woof. So, I guess usually these story beats are just not for me. But in this case, it was like, okay, there's this time travel gimmick, and these characters, like, some of them are initially sympathetic and cool in a way, like Takemichi in his own brand, because he's he's kind of a pansy, a weak ass, but he knows it, and he tries to get better, but not necessarily just by just trying to become like Mikey or becoming like Draken, becoming like this ultimate hard ass that beats everyone to a pulp. A bit of that, but that's not his main thing. And the most thing you could say about him is that he is a very empathetic person, and that he also, after meeting her again, after remembering the feelings he had for Hina, that he cares a lot for her, he cares a lot for his friends. And that's very much put in the forefront of the show, that is his main drive, that is the most important thing, saving his friends because they're also in danger, saving Hina and Naoto because they're especially in danger, and trying to even save the more problematic people in the Toman gang that he grows to like. So yeah, that's interesting. And there are a bunch of other things in there that drive this story. Like, we quickly find out that the main thing he has to do is stop the breakup of the Toman gang, because apparently there was this incident that happened, and that made Mikey and Draken fight, like split the group in two, have like this inner conflict, this civil war, like you said before. And that is basically what ultimately led to Toman changing, because Draken is kind of like Mikey's conscience, And every time Mikey goes overboard, Draken is the one who reins him in. So once that wasn't the case anymore, once they weren't tight buddies anymore, Mikey could go off the deep end, got the Toman fused with another gang, and that was headed by this guy called Kisaki Teta, who is like this fucking master manipulator, puppet master asshole who basically pulls all the strings behind the scenes. We don't know why yet. We don't know what his main motivation is. Still not by the end of the show, but apparently it becomes very clear very quickly that he's the guy who's responsible for everything and who, through several means, tries to basically steer Toman into a specific direction and then turn them into this giant crime syndicate and basically kill everyone who stands in his way of becoming like the top dog or whatever. We don't know if it's just for money, for power, whatever, or if he has another motivation. Maybe that also relates to the title Tokyo Revengers. But that is a very interesting part of the story, and finding out, okay, what exactly happened and what can Takemichi do to stop these events from happening. And there's one part where, because of a certain thing that happens, Mikey and Draken start to fight. And Takemichi's like, holy shit, how do I bring these two together again? And he does it in a way, albeit a very funny, unusual way. That's one of the better comedic scenes in this show. And that's pretty cool. So there are a lot of interesting story beats and development and twists and turns in there. Some are more outrageous than others, especially when it gets to, okay, this should have fixed everything, and then no, it didn't. Takemichi gets thrown from the frying pan into the fire. So yeah, that is always a fun thing when things are escalating very well in this show. And there's some other interesting things in this show in regards to the time traveling mechanic. Like every time Takemichi returns to the future, his past self returns to being the clueless idiot that he was.
Oh,
yeah, because that past of his, he travels to the past with his current conscience, but once he leaves, that's his old self again, with no memory of what happened in the days when, future Takemichi controlled that body. Right. So Takemichi ends up in a bunch of problematic situations once he goes back to the past, because he changed things and his past self now does completely new shit that he has no memory of. For example, he ends up waking up in the past right before having the sex with a girl from Toman called Emma, who wants to make Draken jealous because she's really into him. And of course, Takemichi's past self went for it because he's a little horn dog and he desperately wants to get laid.
Oh, no.
So he never knows what situation he's going to be in anytime he returns to the past or the future, for that matter, because in the beginning it seems like in the future he just lies there and sleeps, but after a while that doesn't happen anymore, and apparently in the future he's also on autopilot. So it gets really interesting to see, okay, where will he be when he returns to the past now or to the future now? Well, what will have changed, and how fucked up is it? And that's one of the one of the hooks of the show, where it's like, oh, you never know what to expect. And I really like that. Of course, the thing I mentioned earlier with the girl also leads to some misunderstanding with Hina and everything. But thankfully, that is resolved very quickly. You know how some of these shows that have romantic subplots and stuff like that dwell on their misunderstandings for way too long and try to create false drama out of them? Mm-hmm. I would expect Tokyo Revengers that kind of focuses a romance pretty heavily between those two, at least when it comes to the main drive of his main character. I would expect them to have maybe more of drama in there, but all the misunderstandings that are in this show, where some huge drama and problems could be derived from, it gets resolved pretty quickly, which is refreshing.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
I wish Hina in general was an actual bigger part in the series, aside from being Takemichi's main drive. She's great and should have had more screen time than she does. She doesn't take shit, and for example, in one scene she just slaps Mikey right in the face because she thinks he's one of the people who bullied Takemichi. And he's like the most dangerous person in this room because Mikey's a kick-ass fighter. The downside of this being he's still mentally a child, and without Draken he is a victim to his impulses. it's maybe a bit dangerous to slap such a guy right in the face, but she does it, and it gets resolved pretty quickly again because Mikey realizes that it was a misunderstanding. So I like that. I like that they didn't turn that into oh, your girlfriend slapped me, now we have to fight to the death or shit like that, And yeah, the romance between Hina and Takamichi isn't bad. A few too many comedic misunderstandings from my taste, but they get resolved pretty quickly and haven't led to any real contrived drama yet. And the emotional key moments between those two are really good. And I gotta say, it's just nice to have a show set in middle school that has an actual boyfriend and girlfriend dynamic and not just the standard will they, won't they back and forth. Like, Hina realizes the difference between the adult version of Takemichi inhabiting his younger self and the original version whenever he returns to the future very quickly. She's like, you're different again. Like, sometimes you feel like a more childish Takemichi, and sometimes you're more adult Takemichi. I don't know what to make of it. Like, she immediately realizes it, so that you see that they have spent a lot of time together, and that they have, that they have already built a relationship, and they know each other. And she's very much like, what? This is not... You're different. You feel like more grown up, and you're saying more intelligent things, and you seem more empathetic. So this is always weird. I like this version of you, but I also like the other version. That is a bit more pig-headed in a way, and it's really interesting for them to have this dynamic. So sometimes I would have liked to see what actual old Takemichi did when he was together with her, but we don't get to see that, of course. But yeah, you quickly realize Hina is a clever girl. She's quick on the uptake, and she is very headstrong. Like, there are also some very funny scenes with her. Like, every time she's on screen is pretty much great. So I wish it would have been more episodes, but the focus is definitely on the dynamic between Takemichi, Mikey, and Draken in this first season. So I hope we get to see, if we get more seasons, I hope we get to see more Hina because she's really good. The one thing I didn't like was the explanation why Takemichi can't just tell Hina about her looming death, because that's a bit dumb. Like, Naoto, her brother, says she wouldn't believe him and start to think he was crazy. And Naoto says he only believed Takemichi when he told him about it in the past because Naoto was into occult shit. There's an easy solution to that. Just pick specific events on a world scale that Takemichi had no influence on and that predict their outcome, and those will definitely happen. So you can convince Hina you have knowledge of the future and tell her, please be careful of this and that. But hey, it's a time travel tale, so you have to give the plot contrivances some leeway or you won't have a story to tell. I get it. But it's still like, don't even try to explain it if you don't have a good explanation. It's like, that's nonsense. That girl is not that stupid. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, the main story is like, at one point, apparently Draken has died. Stop him from dying so that he can be there for Mikey. And then apparently they split up for some reason. Stop that from happening. And then there was apparently this takeover by another gang. So stop that from happening. And it's really cool. Like, how they jump from, like I said, how they escalate things more and more. And every time Takemichi changes something, it maybe changes things for the better, but that isn't it yet. So he has to go back and find a different way. So these are the parts I really like about the show. These characters, like these top characters, Draken, Mikey, Takemichi, Hina, and where the story is going and the back and forth between future and past and, the plot twists and turns and them constantly upping the stakes. What I didn't like were certain aspects, and I talked about this before, with, the gang mentality and everything and how they paint that as the ultimate desired character state, I guess, being like this badass, at least in one way. Like, I don't know, the show kind of goes back and forth on that a bit. They show like some of these old gang leaders, they show them in the future as either still being dangerous criminals, dead, or washed up losers, which, is a lot more earnest criticism than I expected. But sometimes this feels like, yeah, but the people who are still gang leaders and dangerous criminals, they're the cool guys, so they have it made. They fulfilled their goals. And I'm like, what? I I don't know if I agree with you. I don't like this. So, yeah, that is one of the things I didn't like. They also way too often equate Takemichi still being a virgin to having failed at life. And sometimes you wonder if the creator of the story thinks being a virgin is worse than being a thug or a career criminal. Which, it's sometimes the show feels like, with Takemichi constantly blaring about it and being like, oh, Toman is so great and I wish I were Mikey and shit like that. You feel like, that is not what you should desire to be, and not being a virgin is not the important part. Also, it turns Hina into a prize to gain at the end of his ordeal instead of a person Takemichi needs to help, and that kind of sucks, in my opinion. I mean, that's not what the show generally focuses on, at least in the text, because Takemichi always said, hey, Hina is my friend and I care for her, I love her deeply, and I want to save her. But then on the other side, he keeps on raving about, oh man, I'm still a virgin, fuck. And it's like, what the hell?
Dude!
What is your, shit like that? Or, then even though they're in a relationship, he's willing to lose his virginity in a fucking brothel that Draken takes him to because he lives there, because he's an orphan. And it's like, decide what you want to be, Takemichi. Do you want to be an asshole, or do you want to be a good boyfriend? Choose. It would be okay if the kid version of Takemichi thought that Toman and delinquents in general are cool. Hell, as a kid, I would have probably thought the same. But let's not forget, he is an adult now, who has time travel to his younger body. So he double should know that these are all lame punk kid losers who like to beat each other up a lot and to get into other people's faces for a living. There's absolutely nothing cool about them. Zilch. So him just constantly spouting, Toman is the best, they're so fucking cool. It just, that bothered me. It's like, no, you're not your old self. You should know that these are not, they might be cool characters once you get to know them, but what they are practicing is not fucking cool. It's not. It's fucking not. So, yeah.
I had to look it up because I had to know how old he was in his quote-unquote present self. And I guess when you're in your mid-20s, you still have some weird fucked up thoughts. But
yeah.
I still feel like you should, when you're approaching your 30s, you should be able to look back and be like, oh yeah, nah, man.
I get it. He's trapped by nostalgia and, remembering that he had friends once and everything. And I understand all of that. But still, it's like, try to reflect a bit, especially since your first experience when traveling back to the past is getting beaten up by these exact pieces of shit that you admire later on. I mean, not exactly these pieces of shit. Different pieces of shit, like Mikey and Draken, who are also, of course, human beings and flawed, and it's fine, and it's okay, and they have different motivation to be in this gang. And it's really interesting to later learn how Toman actually came to be, like why these characters formed this tight-knit group. But also, there's so much stuff that should ring some bells inside of Takemichi's head and tell him, like, yo, first of all, that gang life is not for you. Second of all, these are bad people. And if they're not now, they will become very bad people. So if you want to stop that, get them out of this fucking gang. That should be his main drive, but that's not necessarily what he does. So
Nah, man, the good old days, man.
Exactly. On the other hand, it's kind of cool that the show, be it intentionally or accidentally, kind of also takes a stance against this kind of buzzword toxic masculinity propagated by these gang stereotypes, because the guy who saves the day is the guy who is constantly scared shitless, bad at fighting, and who cries a fucking lot. It's in the title of the OP, Crybaby. That's Takemichi. And it's not the beat-em-up ballbuster who will win the day, but the guy who solves conflicts by letting himself get punched in the face a lot and shows empathy for others. The guy who thinks of himself as super lame is actually, just like Hina says at one point in a fantastic scene, and I side with her 100%, the coolest of them all. Like, he will stumble and he will fall many times, but his dedication to his friends and former girlfriend pushes him forward and will eventually make him succeed. That's cool. That's what saves the series for me. Because the show is not like saying, oh, okay, the cool guy, the best guy in this story is Mikey, because he's like this badass gang leader who can almost kill people with one kick. It's Takemichi, who just stands there, fucking cries and shouts, stop with this bullshit. Or someone will get killed. This fucking gang, this circle of friends will break apart if you keep doing this. And he's the guy who just does a stranglehold on a guy like again, twice his size or 3 times his size. And basically wins the day through that. Not through a barrage of crazy kung fu punches, but by just outlasting the guy and having the stronger will and not letting go. Like the first fight he wins, actual wins, is not that, it's not him punching the guy out. It's just like him clinging with a fucking stab wound in his hand and everything. And I think even, I'm not sure, broken leg or something. I don't fucking know. He's really battered. But he fucking clings on to that guy and manages to make him unconscious. And it's cool. Like, it's a badass scene. And that's like, I can't fight any other way because I'm too weak for that. But I will find a way to stop this guy. And that is badass. And trust me when I say that, like, his dedication pays off for you as a viewer in at least one of the best hell yeah anime moments I've seen, especially from an emotional standpoint. So he's a good main character. It's just like he's very flawed. And sometimes I wonder, should he be as flawed considering that he came from the future? Because he should know some things that he for some reason forgets when he's back in his younger body. So it's a bit weird. But, he's still, I liked Takemichi as a main character. I thought he was pretty good. It's also cool that we got some characters breaking out of the standard male roles. For example, one of Takemichi's friends, Akun, dreams of being a hairdresser. One of Tomon's upper echelon, Mitsuya, is the president of the sewing club in high school. So there's that. So the show is not always going like, okay, here are these biker gangs, and this is the epitome of coolness. This is what you need to strive to be a cool guy. That is in there, but also on the other side, it's like, no, maybe not. Maybe that's not what you should do and what is the right way. So I'll give the show the benefit of the doubt here when it comes to that. It's one of those shows where it's like, I have to see how it ends and what like the ultimate statement is. For now, it's like a bit back and forth between these several statements. And I guess from what I read from Sons of Anarchy, it's the Japanese version of that with the same pitfalls. Trying to idealize and lift up the image of the gang, of the motorcycle gang and the outlaw status and everything and whatever is the code of these people or is supposed to be the code of these people to some kind of knightly status, which it isn't, never was. So that is the problem in this show. And if you can look past that, I think you can enjoy it because the characters in there are pretty damn great. And I enjoyed them a lot. One last thing I want to talk about before I wrap this up is the Japanese manji symbol, which is used a lot in this show, and is what we would call a swastika. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, has a very negative connotation in the Western world. But in Japan, manji or maji is mostly a slang word that can mean anything or nothing. It is also heavily related to the word yabai, especially when it comes to Japanese gangs, which I guess is the most important factor in this particular case. So delinquents, the Yankee and biker gangs, the Bosuzoku, mostly used manji or yabai or a combination of both to infer the meaning of being incredible, awesome, or dangerous. Basically an indication of being badass rebels that you better don't mess with. Sometimes the manji is also used as a decoration in the name or separation between words, as in the name of the Japanese gang Black Emperor. And if you look at the original title of Tokyo Revengers, it uses the manji symbol in exactly the same way. So it's definitely a reference to that. But yeah, there is lots more interesting stuff to learn about that particular symbol. So I'm going to link an article in the episode description that goes into heavy detail on that. So please check it out. It's really interesting. But yeah, as I said, in the Western world, we associate swastikas or the manji symbol pretty much only with Nazis. So
thanks for that, Hitler.
Mm-hmm. He really ruins everything. So you can imagine a show airing on Western streaming services that prominently features that symbol that is mostly used for characters that are painted as cool guys, depending on how you look at it, might be facing some censorship. And boy, does it ever. There is not a tits and ass anime in existence that is fucked up by weirdly placed rays of light, irritating or inconsistent edits, and weird slowed down camera pans as badly as Tokyo Revengers is fucked up by censoring the manji symbol in every scene that it's in. And those are a lot of scenes. It's on the uniforms of the Toman gang members, it's on their bikes, it's on their flags, it's featured prominently in the OP of the show, it's everywhere. So, of course, watching the show on Crunchyroll was a fucking chore. Once Toman gets fully introduced, which is around episode 5, so I had to seek out the uncut version from Japanese broadcast TV to be able to keep on watching the show, because all the hoops the editors are jumping through to make the show acceptable for Western regulations are incredibly noticeable and make this thing almost unwatchable in that form. There's sometimes light all over the screen. Like, characters who are talking are not on screen or are weirdly zoomed in. Some camera pans just fucking stop because they can't end on the shot they are supposed to end on because the manji symbol is in there. It's hilarious and off-putting.
Jesus.
I get why they did it, but it's a huge detriment to the show. I didn't even know that the symbol was in the show, but the censorship was so pervasive that I quickly looked up why the show was censored so heavily. And, well, now I know and you know as well. So, if you plan to watch the show, grab a torrent of the Japanese broadcast. I don't know if the Blu-ray will be uncensored, and even
that's what I wonder about too.
Yeah, but even if it was, I probably couldn't import it because, as you can imagine, Germany has a bit of a chip on its shoulder regarding swastikas.
Yeah, huh? What's up with that again?
Rightfully so, of course, but I would probably get a very unfriendly call from German customs and or the police if I tried to import a Blu-ray that has the manji symbol on its cover. Hell, I work at a German online marketplace, and I personally, no joke, had to blacklist all the merchandise for Tokyo Revengers from our shop so that we weren't liable in case of a social media shitstorm.
Oh no!
Yep, there you go. That's a personal story that the anime found its way into. But yeah, so you can see it probably won't happen that I will import the Blu-ray for this show.
That's unfortunate.
But yeah, it's an interesting wrinkle, so be aware of that. Maybe the censorship won't hamper your viewing experience of the show as much as it did initially for me, but it gets really noticeable after the first couple of episodes, like I said. But yeah, overall, despite all its flaws and sometimes problematic, I guess, themes or messaging, or, dubious messaging, I guess, and what it's trying to do with some of the factions in this show and who it's trying to put on a pedestal. I like this show. I thought Tokyo Revengers was fun. There was some great character drama in there. The time travel gimmick is neat. And some of the characters and drama are really good in this. I would like to see more of Hina in the future if we get more seasons, which, who knows? I don't know if that will happen, if this show was successful enough. But yeah, I would like to see more of Hina. I would like to see more of Takemichi, of his friends. Definitely where the story with Mikey and Draken goes. And Kisaki Teta, the main asshole, definitely needs to get his comeuppance. I don't know if that will happen, but we'll see. And I definitely want to see everyone have a happy end. Though unless everyone leaves the fucking gang, that wouldn't be, I guess, a fitting ending in my opinion. Because, some of these characters just are bound to end up in a bad place because of how they started out and what shit they already were involved with. Some of them will probably end up in prison. Some of them will end up dead, if this is the realistic show that it is in these kind of aspects. And it seems to be. Because, there are some characters in there who already have ended up in prison and will stay there probably. And some will stay dead. And it's like, okay, holy shit, this show is getting real at times, and it's getting really dark, and I can't imagine this getting the perfect happy ending. Though I hope we will at least get one for our main character, for Takemichi, and for his maybe girlfriend, but also not girlfriend in the future. That might also be the too easy way for them to actually ending up together after a while, because then it makes Hina more of a gift again, and a reward for Takemichi. I would like it more if she actually has her own life, like the girl in Erased, I forgot her name. that actually doesn't become the girlfriend or the wife of the main character, but just becomes his friend in the future once they have changed the past. And that's cool. And I would like that for those two as well, because it's kind of like, I don't know. Otherwise, it feels like too much of a, hey, you changed your life. Here's your fucking waifu reward, and that, I don't know. That rubs me a bit the wrong way. If that is turns out to be the main motivation. Although maybe there's a way they make this feel earned in the future. Who knows? Anyway, I've rambled on long enough for a single season, for a first season review. The end of this season is very exciting because it turns out that Takemichi changed a lot more than he intended to. And of course, it all ends on the worst of all cliffhangers. So I really hope there will be a second season. I don't know. But if there will be, I will check it out. And like I said, you can do that on Crunchyroll. And if you are remotely interested in this kind of stuff, in time travel, in crime drama, maybe motorcycle gangs, maybe Yankee, delinquents, that kind of stuff, that kind of a subculture, then this might be interesting to you. The show definitely puts in the work there, I guess. And yeah, then definitely check the show out. Despite its flaws overall, and despite its censorship, I had a good time.
Right, so I'm glad that you enjoyed Tokyo Revengers, because when we first talked about it, you were really unsure about it. And I get it from what we initially talked about before now. But now it's time for My Hero Academia Season 5.
The biggest sigh. John, what bothers you? What's your problem? Why are you so down?
Maybe we should say first that Season 5 pretty much picks up right where Season 4 left off.
Yes.
It wraps up part of the pro-hero arc that was started in Season 4, and then it immediately goes into a training arc. And I don't remember if I said it in these many words back when we first talked about it in the sneak peek. But, man, in that opening sequence, when they show everybody from Class 1B, I was just like, I'm immediately exhausted.
There are a lot of characters, yeah.
Because this season does the same thing that this show keeps fucking doing. And I didn't want to be immediately down on this season, but fuck it, here we go. What percentage of the characters that we were introduced to, not that we've seen before, that we were introduced to from 1B in this season, do you think will actually be relevant in any ratio ever again?
2.
That's about right.
I mean, I always forget his name. We have met of them on a kind of regular basis already in previous seasons, like the asshole guy. I forget who has some weird beef with 1A because they're the top dogs. He's around.
Fucking name was.
Yeah, I think he's funny. He's a fucking dick, but I find him always funny in a way. And I think the other one being there on a regular basis, aside from Tetsu, who has this bromance with Kirigaki. I think it's Shinzo, right? He's also one of the main important or the characters that is the focus on in this first training arc, because he wasn't in the hero course initially, but he wanted to transfer to it after clashing with Deku in season 2 in the tournament. And now, for some reason, that kind of changed his mind, and now he wants to use his brainwashing technique and everything, and some stuff he got from Eraserhead and everything to become a hero. So I think he will appear again.
Yeah, so Shinso, he was part of 1C, not 1B. I had to double check that myself because I didn't remember.
Yeah, he transferred to 1B, or he isn't sure if he's going to be 1A or 1B yet, right? Something like that.
So, Shinso's cool. He's, got some interesting stuff going on, like you said, the brainwashing and whatnot. And that becomes key in one part of this joint training montage that I'm just gonna say it right away. It was about 6 episodes longer than it needed to be.
Oh yeah, at least.
You know, I'll be nice. 4 episodes longer.
Yes. Okay. I mean, let's try to find the positives here, right? The animation in this first arc is fucking stellar. It's a huge upgrade compared to season 4, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think the fight looks. This fights look spectacular. Like the first battle, when the scene when Ingenium fucking unleashes his new power, like when Ida does it, right? That looks fucking amazing. Like they again got their top team on this. I don't know why on this particular arc, but the fights, because it's so fight heavy, maybe. But the fights in this look really good. I enjoyed kind of all of them. Also, at least in what they did with how the characters use their new abilities and everything, because they sometimes have to find creative ways. We see some new creative powers from the Class B. It's just a nice showcase of abilities, I guess. That's what I liked about it. You know, you get this guy with the cool onomatopoeia. I can't say that word.
Onomatopoeia
powers, where it's like this weird fucking letters that he can form, you know, the sound effects that materialize in the worlds, and also get more onomatopoeia in the background and everything, you know, that gives it more this comic booky feel. So that shit was pretty creative and cool, you know. And then you got our mainstays get a couple of new powers. That is pretty interesting. I think the weakest fight of all of them was actually the last one with Deku. That kind of they just could have completely left out, in my opinion. It was not really interesting or thrilling. I think the most important part is that Deku loses the power over his new ability that he gained, like Black Whip or what it's called.
Yeah. I guess since we're there, what the fuck is One for All?
Yeah, that is the question.
You know that stupid fucking trope, we're not so different, you and I? Is All for One just the same as One for All? And I gotta wonder, All Might only had his one quirk, right?
Yes, and that's what he says. You know, it's like he never were. You know, Deku for some reason is now available to communicate with the past hosts of One for All in his dreams, and All Might was never able to do that.
So that makes you wonder: does One for All manifest in different ways? Can it?
Yes.
Does it use different quirks like All for One? Does it skip generations, and now we're seeing all of that come to bear with Deku?
I think all of that. I think the answer is yes to all of that, all of the above, because I think it heightens the certain inherent powers of certain people. Let's say it's like the X gene in the X-Men, where it's like maybe they have inherent abilities that have not awakened yet, and I would say One for All does that and makes them more powerful. But also every time it jumps to a new host, it bears the possibility of you also using the powers of the previous host. The possibility. Nobody was apparently able to do that yet. Deku is the first guy who apparently has, for some reason, the link to the original owner of One for All and might be able to unlock all the powers that are now stored within One for All. So that seems to be, that's my interpretation of it. That seems to be what One for All is and what might happen. So I think he has unlocked one more power, Black Whip. He has All Might's power, which is basically just a buff up, super strength. And how many more previous hosts were there? 4?
4, I think.
I think the next one he's supposed to learn is Float, which was the ability of All Might's master, right? The previous who had One for All before All Might, and who is the grandmother of Shigaraki, right? I think she had Float as a power, and now that is flying.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that is what Deku is now supposed is gonna come next after Black Whip. They said that at the very end of the show, which for some reason makes Bakugo super gleeful because, you know, he already can float through explosions, so he is already one step ahead of Deku again, which makes him super happy. QED!
God damn it, Bakugo.
For some reason he says, I love Bakugo so much. Anyway, continue, John. So that's how One for All apparently works.
Yeah, it didn't really. I gotta imagine it's more clear in the manga, or maybe it's not. I don't know at this
Who
point
knows? Yeah.
because they were just like, oh, he suddenly, suddenly he has this new power from one of the past bearers of One for All. Okay, fine. Throw me a little bit of a bone, bone here, guys. But I don't know.
It gets sprung on you a bit. It was like, okay, they teased it at the end of this, of the last season, where Deku suddenly can talk to original owner of One for All, and then in this season you learn it. But we learn together with All Might and with Deku that this is uncharted territory for all of them, and they don't even know what's happening. So I guess I don't like that it's all so vague in certain parts, and I like that Deku had to use this one specific power set that he couldn't use the full potential of because it would kill him, to find ways to beat people much stronger than him with better quirks than him, right? I like that he had to be creative and had to use his head. So I don't know if now just giving him the potential of, I don't know, 7 more powers or something, making too much of a fucking OP character, and that is, that might something that puts me off, where it's like, no, I like the version of Deku that is constantly in his head and constantly tries to figure shit out or needs to figure shit out. And maybe if he has this wide power set, he doesn't need to anymore. He just has a power for anything anyone throws at him.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, there's a reason why he will become the strongest hero of them all. That is the end point of the story. But still, it's like, maybe, I don't know, you could have gone there a different way to not change his characters. And I mean, he needs to figure out how to use Black Whip. He can't do it from the beginning. It fucks him up, right? It's not controllable in the beginning. And he needs to find a way to make a good use of that, because it's not a super strong power anyway, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, it's more of a utility than anything else.
So that kind of, at least Black Whip kind of fits his character. It's like, okay, this is a different way to get around and to find ways to enhance the way I fight in a way. But it's not necessarily like this super powerful blast, like a new Kamehameha or whatever, or a Final Flash. It's just like, it's not necessarily stronger, but it's a different way for me to fight. Right. So maybe we'll get some cool strategic fights out of that. I don't know. It just feels like they promise, oh, this character will have all this shit he can do. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm interested in that. I don't know if he needs to do that.
Like, what's your game plan, Horikoshi? I mean, obviously people who read the manga must know, because...
Do they, though? I don't know how far the manga is ahead. And considering how much Horikoshi is, like, apparently a fan of American comic books and superhero comic books, these guys didn't have plans for long-term story arcs sometimes either. If you spend some time with American comics, there are some runs where there's a Bible that outlines certain things and how things are supposed to happen, but sometimes they were just making shit up on the fly. So I don't know what Horikoshi is. I feel like some of his story beats are planned out, but maybe for some stuff he's also like, no, this would be interesting, so let's go with that. And then he tries it and maybe sees where it leads to. So I don't know. I can't tell. We'll find out, I guess, maybe. And I can see what your holdups are with that, because I felt the same in certain aspects where it's like, man, Deku doesn't even yet have a handle on All Might's power.
Yeah.
All Might's version of One for All. Why are you already...
So fuck it, let's give him something new.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
why?
Why are you throwing new shit at him already? Just let him let him get to 100% full cowl All Might shit. Let him do that without breaking his body, and then for a long time, like a consistent fight, and then maybe throw some new power set at him. That would be okay. That's totally fine. Upgrades are normal in shonen manga, so sure, great, but not so much at once.
Right. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I can see that.
So I guess after that was I'm kind of glossing over things because whatever.
Then if you want to go to the next mini arc, I guess, that we're doing, there's really not much to say about this first training arc, right? It's just fights. It just showcases for the new abilities.
I'm going to be real with you. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about much of this season, dude.
I would disagree with that, but we'll get to the later parts. But
yeah, the training arc it's there.
Yeah, it's there. It's just like, hey, we haven't seen the characters of 1A in a while, and here are they, and that's great. I love these characters, so let's have them fight these other characters, and let's show off some cool new abilities, which is fine and all. You know,
but what happens later on when that ultimately doesn't matter?
Yeah, exactly. But it's not much else. You know, it would have been nicer to see them upgrade their abilities, like being revealed in a plot-relevant context or a cool story moment in general, except for just rattling them off all in this exhibition. So it's just like, yeah, these powers and everything and how they upgrade it are cool. Like Tokoyami learning how to fly during his apprenticeship with Hawks is cool. You know, Ingenium getting his new power is cool. Seeing again how Bakugo changed so much that he completely ruins Class B strategy, like, is cool. Like, he saves others and lets them save him. He trusts his teammates. It isn't a single man show anymore. Even him being part of the band plays into it. I like when insignificant seeming arcs like the school festival play into long-term character development. We had that in this part of season 5. And I like these character beats. It's just like, why did you have to make it a training arc? You could have put these character beats and these developments into actual story arcs and just use these characters there. So it feels a bit of a waste. It feels like, oh, people want to see more of our characters, but I Horikoshi, don't know how to integrate them actually into my plot, so I'm just gonna do them their shit and upgrade their powers, which they maybe never use in the actual plot, in this training arc. And it's like, why are you doing this?
You know, I had a brief think about this a few days ago, and I sort of wondered at first why every single episode they would show a character's name and quirk on the screen. I was like, oh, I get it. It's because the show has 10,000 characters. They all get lost in the fold.
You have to remember all of these because there are so many.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you remember fucking Tetsu and his iron body quirk?
Yeah, did you remember Zero and Tape, his power Tape, which makes him basically Spider-Man? And also, what the fuck is that with Zero not closing his mask? Like, I mean,
I don't know.
Deco never does put on his mask either, but this is not live action Hollywood stuff where they need to showcase the actor's face because they paid a lot for them. So the only reason I can see why they do this is to be able to show some expressions on the character faces and have them react more expressively, but that is not consistent. Ingenium was in full gear in his key scene in this season, so why not Zero? It's super weird. Like, I don't get it. It looks super dumb and he just has a mask open, and he looks cool when it's closed, so why the fuck don't you do that? I don't understand it. I guess for Deku it makes sense because he's the main character and his mask is really stupid. But you know, for these other characters, just wear your full costumes, you assholes. I like costumes heroes, so wear your fucking costumes. Yeah. But that's basically the first arc. It's just character A1 fighting B1, and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's weird because I guess the next arc was put out of order.
Yes,
compared to next in the manga.
Yeah, exactly. Next was supposed to come My Villain Academia, which happens directly after the training arc in the manga, but in the anime, it happens at the very end of the season. So they shifted that around a bit. I don't know the reason for that.
Maybe I don't know, maybe in the manga it was kind of broken up in the middle and they just kind of wanted to keep it all together.
Maybe. I didn't check it, but as far as I know, it happened completely before what we see next in the anime after the training arc, which is the Endeavor apprenticeship arc. So it was like, and I mean, they say that they after that they jump back. Oh, this is what happened 1 month ago or 3 months ago, and it's like, what? Why are you doing it this way? Why are you not telling it in the correct chronological order? That also leads to a different problem, which I assume we will get to. And it's just like, why this way? Was your main stuff working on a movie or shit like that? Did you want to end on a certain banger reveal or shit like that? What was? I didn't get it. I did not get this. I didn't want to jump ahead. So maybe I'll keep that for when we get to the actual My Villain Academia arc and talking about it. But that caused a problem for me that wouldn't have been there if they had split the shit up. And, you know.
I wonder what problem you could be talking about. Could it be the one where Hawks clearly gives Endeavor information about the uprising, and then Endeavor sits on that information for 6 episodes without doing anything?
Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that, but it's more the whole season thing and how it felt. But yeah, that's one of the things that arise from that. There are also some plot inconsistency that result from this weirdly being mixed up. So yeah.
Fucking and all right, I get that Endeavor has family trouble, mostly of his own entirely of his own creation, not mostly.
Yes, entirely. Yes, it's his fault. It's entirely his fault.
And him trying to reconcile with his family is, okay. But when it ultimately comes down to, hey, why did you bother? It was kind of like, well, okay, all right. This was basically for nothing. Also, I spoiled myself on something because I wanted to look something up, and I was dumb.
Just now, or
not just now, but back then, when Endeavor is talking about his other son,
the brother of Shoto, who apparently got killed in a way, right? Or we don't know what happened to him yet. They only speak in the show anyway. They say like he died. We don't know why, right?
Yeah. I'm going to put this out there as a warning to you and everyone else who's anime only. Do not Google search Toya Todoroki, because the first result is a fucking massive spoiler.
Oh, okay. So
I found something out.
Okay, so he's probably still alive and probably a villain. Anyway.
Because, I mean, if you're not a fucking blockhead like me, you can probably intuit something in that regard. But I hadn't put all the pieces together. And then I looked that up just to see, because I wanted to read something about him. And then I found that out and I was like, oh, well, fuck me, I guess. Thanks, fan wikis. Okay,
there are several villains with ice and fire powers in this show. And we had one prominently featured in My Villain Academia. I'm looking at all of these characters now very intently. No, I don't want to. I want to be surprised. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Maybe I won't be surprised, but it's good to know I have to be aware of that. So thanks, John. But yeah, let's talk about Endeavor. That's what happens next. So Deku and after the training arc, Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto go in an apprenticeship with Endeavor. And Endeavor is still trying to figure out how to become the best version of number one hero he can be without trying to copy All Might. And at the same time, he's determined to atone for the horrible things he did to his family. And neither Shoto nor his brother Natsu are willing to forgive him for now. But at least Shoto is willing to watch Endeavor make an effort.
Yeah.
And judge him accordingly. It's more than what Endeavor could have asked for, honestly. But I like that the series doesn't go from worst dad of all time to loving family in the blink of an eye, which some shows do, especially in anime.
Out of all of the things with this season, I feel like I respect that. Out of everything that happens in this season, Shoto isn't immediately like, oh, well, it's okay, Dad. No, the fact that he's like, let me at least watch how this plays out. I respect that a lot.
Yes, I wanted a long and arduous redemption arc for Endeavor. I already said that in our review for season 4 when I got the feeling like, oh, they're trying to redeem him in a way. Please don't make it this instant thing where he says, now I'm number one hero and now my family forgives me because I fought a Black Nomu with losing an eye or shit like that, right? So focus on your main characters, which I consider Endeavor one of, if only considering his direct connection to Shoto. And then, like you said, the stuff with Shoto's big brother also plays into that, and we don't really get filled into that yet in this season. And I love that Shoto, even when that arc with the apprenticeship starts, still isn't giving Endeavor an inch when it comes to his past behavior. he's saying stuff like, I'm doing this to become like All Might, I have not forgiven you, and me being here is my own choice because I need to use you to reach my goal. But that's all you are to me right now, a tool. And Endeavor is visibly hurt by that, because he thought he was already getting back to in Shoto's good graces. Well, apparently not. Good, work for it, you jackass. And I like that they, made that clear in the beginning of this arc, where it's like, no, you don't get to go the easy way get the easy way out, Endeavor. That's not, you did too much bad shit. You really, really have to redeem yourself. Not just say that you do it. You really have to work for it. And
even when Natsuo gets into a bit of trouble and Endeavor helps him out, he's still like not ready to forgive him.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like there's a great quote on Natsuo's wiki page that's I get the feeling mom and sis here want to forgive you, but all I see is the same maniac who all of a sudden is getting rave reviews. You might look like a changed man, but you're not. And that's oof.
Yeah, it's great. Like in general, there's like this interaction when they train, although there's not that much, but I think the main focus or the main development is when we have like a dinner at Endeavor's house, where there is a clash kinda, and then when Natsu gets kidnapped. Yeah, kidnapped doesn't really last long, but you know what I mean.
Abducted.
Abducted, yeah, surely. So, and we got a lot of different facets, or see a lot of different facets of Endeavor in this arc. Like, all things considered, he's not a bad teacher, first of all. Like, he teaches our three characters some good shit. Some things Bakugo needs to hear. Some things Shoto needs to hear. Some things Deku definitely needs to hear when figuring themselves out, right? And, Shoto, quickly after doing this, after starting this, he realizes that he admires the hero Endeavor, but still thinks the dead Endeavor is, or at least has been, a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts him like in a hard space, because you get the feeling, okay, he maybe deep down he wants to forgive his dad, but he can't, because there's just too much shit in the past between those two. And he sees what his dad can accomplish as a hero, and he sees what his sister wants, he sees what his brother wants, and he's like caught in the middle, really, because he doesn't really lean either way right now, or hasn't decided yet. Like, the dinner at the Todoroki house is awkward as fuck. Mm-hmm. And I loved Midoriya's and Bakugo's reaction to it. Like, ugh, this is so uncomfortable.
They're immediately like, maybe no, let's no.
I can't. I don't want to be here. I think Bakugo even says, "It's fucking awkward" at some point out loud. I'm not sure, but that would fit his character. So yeah, every time Natsuo, Shoto's big brother, makes an offhand comment that is taking a jab at Endeavor, who is at the table as well, Midoriya and Bakugo tense up, and it's so relatable to me. I don't know about you, John, but I have been at dinner tables, be it friends or somewhere else, where the family got into a fight, or just, feel it in the air that something isn't right, and the atmosphere has like this heavy feel to it. And both Midoriya and Bakugo know the reason why here it's especially uncomfortable. So, yeah, it's heavy, but it also was enjoyable in a way.
Yeah, that... Oof. Oof. There's good characterization on that in there, but I guess it's probably one of the stronger parts of this season.
But it feels weird that it's a bit wedged in between, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
which it initially
wedged
wasn't
in between anyway.
But I feel like if they had started the next season with this arc, it would have felt more organic, especially in terms of tempo, in terms of pacing, the show slowly ramping up. If you started it with this, character drama, kind of slow moving, focused on the development of Shoto and Endeavor, that would have felt a bit better. But like this, you went from, I don't know, just super climactic fights where not really anything plot relevant happened, to more not plot relevant things happening, even more slowing down and concentrating really on this character drama. And then after that, you went to full on plot with the most ridiculous high speed pacing the show has ever had. So I feel like there is something to be said for maybe putting that going the way the manga structured it, because I feel like it would have worked a bit better if we had that at the beginning of season 6 and would have directly gone from the training arc, which was already plenty slow, at least in terms of plot, to My Villain Academia. So yeah, I feel like this was a bad decision to put this arc here, even though I really like this little Endeavor arc. Like there's so many bits in here that I enjoyed. Like you mentioned it, Natsu is still so very angry at his dad. Says in a flashback to an earlier scene that Endeavor has decided to make amends and try to be a dad again on his own. Like the people he hurt have not permitted him to do that. So how dare he even entertain that thought? He should just fuck off, right? And that, just having like this complete contrast to Fuyumi, the big sister, who is the one I'm most sorry for in that constellation, because she also is still sometimes angry at her dad for what he did, but what she wants more than anything is for all of them to be a family again. And Natsu can understand that desire for peace and tranquility, but it also might not be in the cards, so she has to accept that. The two siblings might not ever come to seeing eye to eye when it comes to that, because there's just so much baggage. And like I said, Shoto is caught in the middle. And, Shoto sees what his sister wants, what his brother wants. He doesn't know how to decide. And Midoriya says, while it would be totally okay to hate his father and never forgive him, he thinks the reason Shoto is so conflicted right now is because he is getting ready mentally to forgive his father for his past sins. He needs to come to a point where he doesn't hate himself if he doesn't hate his father anymore. Because that's what his entire life, his entire drive in life, ever since his mom threw that kettle with boiling water in his face, because she suffered so much abuse from Endeavor, and Shoto's face reminded too much of Endeavor. Ever since that happened, hating his dad and, becoming better as his dad, never becoming like his dad was his main drive. So it would mean a complete turnaround on his inner mental state to now entertain the thought of forgiving his father. So that's really tough for him. And that's what Midoriya tries to make him face. It's like, hey, it's totally fine, considering what your dad has done, to hate him until the rest of your life. But that's maybe not what you want. And that's what I think, and that's how I see it. And yeah, we see an extended scene of the scene with where Shoto's mom hurt him, where she threw the burning the kettle with hot burning water in his face, and that was so good and also so horrifying. Like where his mother, after doing that, immediately breaks down in regret and screams, "Oh God, Shoto, are you all right? Oh God, what have I done? What have I done?" And it's super hard to watch. And these are the scenes I love in My Hero Academia, where it's like this really gripping character drama, right? With this, where these characters feel like they're right next to you and you understand them, and it's so terrifying in a way because it's so emotional. And we know that Shoto has already forgiven his mom, and she's getting better through stationary psychological therapy, and that is great. But the person that caused all of that, especially in Shoto's and Natsuo's eyes, is still in their lives, and now more present than ever, because he now is the number one hero and has decided to be their dad again for some reason. And we constantly see Endeavor constantly pondering, what can I even do for my family? How can I atone for what I have done? Is there even a way? Maybe not. Has he even outright apologized to them yet at that point? I don't think so. At least the show didn't show it yet.
Yeah, pretty sure he hasn't.
Yeah, at least at that moment in the show when they have this dinner and everything. I mean, he is apparently visiting his wife in the mental hospital, and he's trying to be part of dinner and all that, but has he thrown himself into the dust and begged for forgiveness in front of each member of the family he tortured for so long? If I were Shoto, I wouldn't even try to forgive him before that happened, at least. So, that is the point where we are at when that dinner happens. So I thought that scene was incredibly strong. And then when Natsuo gets abducted, we kind of get the feeling, okay, Endeavor maybe finally found a way for himself what he can do. It might not be the best for him, or what he actually wants, but it might be the best thing for his family. It's the first time he actually expresses something like an apology to Natsuo, even though it doesn't really necessarily bear fruit. But, it's the first time we see it. So that was good. Like, his plan to atone is to let his family live happily in a house far away from him, where they are not constantly reminded of all the bad blood from the past. But that's also not what Fuyumi wants, I think. She wants all of them to be a family again. Maybe that's not possible, and getting their, Mang back home and into a place she feels safe is a top priority. So that it feels like that choice of Endeavor is maybe the right one. Where it's like, okay, I can't, considering all the baggage, and considering you want your mom home, and she still has problems with me being there, and is probably scared of me, and I've done so much shit, I probably shouldn't be here, even if that's what I want right now. If that's what I desperately want, I can't. And even if that's what Fuyumi wants. So we have to find the best way, first of all, to make your mom feel safe. And, that's why I'm going to move to a different house. So that's cool in a way. I think him being the bigger man in that regard and putting what the others need before his own needs and before his own wants is a right step. And I think that's great that the show actually goes there. And like I said, doesn't go from, okay, I apologize, now we are a big happy family again.
Yeah, that would be disingenuous.
Yes, he says he doesn't want his family's forgiveness. He wants to atone, which is the right approach.
Mm.
It doesn't put any burden on his kids to forgive him because it doesn't expect them as his prize for finally making amends. And that's good. That's good that Horikoshi approached it this way, because for me, that is the only way how you could make this work. If it were like this sappy, hey, I'm sorry for everything, please forgive me, and then they all just keel over and say like, okay, it's all right, all is forgiven, that wouldn't have fit their characters at all. Especially not Natsuo's, like you said. It's just like, no, that he has so much anger for his dad. That is not possible. At least not that quick. It's going to take many years before there might be some bridges rebuilt. Shoto may be faster, because he, like Deku said, he might be already getting to a place in his head where that is a thought he can entertain. Fuyumi definitely already is there. She just wants, their whole family happy and together. But rest of them, maybe not so much. So I like that part of the story. I think it's neat that they put it in there. It's one of those things I don't necessarily expect from a action shonen superhero show. All the family stuff in My Hero Academia is pretty good. Even Overhaul's family stuff was pretty good in the last season. The small bits we saw of Ida and his brothers are good. Every scene with Deku and his mom is good. The stuff is good. The stuff with Uravati and her parents is good. So My Hero Academia has family stuff down. I think Horikoshi knows how to write family drama. He's good at that.
Everything else, though.
Everything else. Yes, let's get to the everything else. I mean, there's some other bits in this season that I liked. Like, I like the Christmas party. There are so many charming details in there. Like, everyone being in Christmas getup, except for Bakugo, who refuses to wear any of that stuff, even though Mina is doing her darndest to put something on him. Like, Ida being, of course, the perfect Santa. Of course. Like, Eri being happy, Jiro playing guitar, everyone having a good time, the hilarious way the gifts get shared. I loved all of that. And then you get these foreboding words by Deku. At the time, not knowing anything, I thought it would be nice to have a Christmas like this next year too. It's like, oh no!
Why would you say that?
It's like, Jesus fucking Christ, and please don't do this. This is again also one of the things why I thought it would have been maybe better to split this up a bit, because despite how dark the kind of character drama stuff of the arc with Endeavor is, the apprenticeship arc, there is enough comedy in there and hilarious moments and everything, right? And, there's great, charming character interactions. My Villain Academia is super dark. The final arc of this season is the darkest the show has ever gotten, and the most gory, violent, ridiculous, death everywhere, because now we're focused on the villains, and the villains don't care if they kill someone or not. And there's It's horrifying. And apparently after that, it's just gonna continue with that kind of tone, judging from what the characters are saying and what the show is foreshadowing. So maybe a small breakup with a light, quote-unquote, light apprenticeship arc would have been a bit better. Just instead of jumping probably next season directly into the fray again. And it's like, oh my god. But yeah, let's talk about the final arc of the season, John.
Man, Shigaraki just don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, it takes so long to get to this point, man, though.
Where he just, becomes what he was intended to become. At least intended by One for All.
Yeah,
no, not One for All for One. God damn it, these names.
I had to catch myself several times earlier. Don't worry.
Yes.
But yeah, one of All for One's personal confidants gives Tomura this seemingly impossible challenge to take out this one villain named Gigantomachia, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Gigantomachia is just this big motherfucking bruiser, and he's basically the nemesis to the nemesis, the Mr. X, the You Pick It.
Only the size of Godzilla or something.
Pretty close of Shigaraki and crew. And I mean, I get the idea that, if you take this big bad bruiser down, then you'll be worthy of, succeeding my name. But man,
it's their own little training arc, right? It's like we have true training arcs in this fucking season, where it's like, which again maybe speaks against putting this directly after the other training arc, because that's, what we get. We get like, but it's not as long. It's like one episode where they show like Tomura basically training with Gigantomachia and trying to kill him or beat him. And it's like, okay, all right. This is weird. And don't skip over that the confidant of All for One is apparently Dr. Robotnik, because he fucking looks like him. This fucking Eggman right there. Uchuki is just, that's what he looks like.
Yeah, Garaki is definitely just Eggman, straight up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this sort of plays into at the same time where Shigaraki and crew are heading out to I forget the name of the city that they're going to.
Deka City or something?
Yeah, I think that's it. Where, hey, that whole city is just one giant villain hive.
Mm-hmm. Masking as normal people, I guess, or a city of heroes. Like, that's we learned that the people behind this, also the organization that the League of Villains is going up against, is kind of like an incognito villain operation, right? That's the what was it? The Quirk Liberation Front, or what was it?
Yeah. Paranormal Liberation Front.
Wait, is that the final name they assume? Because they changed their name when at the end of the season.
Oh no, wait, that's right. It was the Meta Liberation Army, and then Shigaraki changed the name.
Yeah, exactly. Meta Liberation Army. So they're basically heroes.
Which is fucking
villains
fancy way of saying that.
Yeah. It's basically villains masking as heroes and working as heroes undercover, kinda, and eventually trying to, I guess, overthrow the government, or letting basically everyone freely use their power, their quirks, trying to lift restrictions. I don't even know what the main guy's Destro's or Destro's initial goal was for this. I don't remember anymore. But they kind of, clash with the League of Villains. They capture Giran, who's like their go-to guy for their fencer, I guess, and
it's like just their info guy.
Yeah, exactly. And they try to basically lure Tomura to Deka City to work for them. And yeah, that's basically what then happens. We have like this big clash, and I guess their plan is to kill the League of Villains to then paint themselves as the ultimate heroes or something and gain more power in the hero society. I'm not sure if that was the plan.
It's weird because Redestro is kind of doing this under the guise of this lifestyle support company.
Yeah.
And I find it weird. I mean, I guess I get it, but it's weird that this is the point in the story where these characters in particular, maybe it's because they feel like it's been kind of appropriated by the quote unquote heroes, but they go out of their way to not say quirk and instead say meta power, which maybe. Again, this series is the king. I'm not filling us in on the background, but maybe that's what it was originally referred to, and quirk became sort of a casual way of referring to it.
Maybe, or was the thing, was the naming different in the Japanese? I didn't pay attention to that in the Japanese language as well, or maybe it was just a change in translation?
Well, the word specific to quirk, I believe, is kosei, and I remember them saying something like meta something, like them actually using the word.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, might be something that might be just as a difference in ideology, where it's like, no, these quirk has kind of a maybe negative connotation, while meta power has a more noble tone to it.
I would say when you say it, it's meta power. It sounds stronger than saying.
Yes, exactly, and that's that matches with the ideology of the Meta Liberation Front, where they're like, no, these powers are nothing to be fearful of, or let's say it's kind of like the Magneto train of thought. Hey, we are superior to other beings because of our powers, so we should be treated as such, right? So we are the Homo superior in contrast to the Homo sapiens. So, although it's weird because most of the people in this universe have superpowers, Deku is one of the few ones who doesn't, and so it doesn't really match it in that regard. But it also feels like in this universe there's a giant restriction on how meta powers are supposed to handle it, and if you don't adhere to the rules, you're automatically painted as a villain. That's what society does in this, which could be a critique, of certain things in our real world.
Again, a civil war.
Yeah. So, and the Meta Liberation Front has a different a different school of thought, and it was like, no, we have like this doctrine we live by the original Destro, who went through some shit and wrote his manifesto, and we live by that, and meta powers are supposed to be used freely and everything. So that's where they're coming from, and like I said, they work their way in the shadows. They have like master manipulators in media and everywhere who make it all work in their way and keep them hidden from the law enforcement and everything, and from the people who might actually do something about that. And they have a lot of people in politics and everything, so they have their hands in everything. They're kind of like Hydra, I guess. But they want to kill the League of Villains just to paint themselves as the ultimate good guys and gain even more power and more influence. But, as they should have learned from Overhaul's fate, Tomura doesn't respond well to threats and pressure. So he decides to lure Giganto Makia to their HQ and wreak havoc. So that severely backfires, that plan that they have.
Yeah, a little bit.
Even though Redestro, their leader, said they have over 100,000 hidden members all over Japan or the world. So I don't know how much lasting effect that would have had if it didn't ultimately play out the way it did.
Yeah.
But what I like about this final arc is, of course, the focus on our main villains, the League of Villains, which I felt always was interested in them because they've played a relatively big part in all of the important arcs so far, right? They had one hand in steering the outcome of those in one way or another. I mean, it starts out with them in the very first season, and they take a bit of a break in the second season, and then, they become front and center in the third season again, and even in the fourth one, at least in the first half with Overhaul and everything, because they kind of infiltrate and also, fuck him up. And,
a little bit.
Yeah, so all the same time, it feels like they are surprisingly, for, being these villain characters, like this patchwork makeshift family. At least they have this dynamic, especially maybe some more characters more than others, but it always feels like Tomura is not really taking advantage of them, and if he does it with their full knowledge. He's not going behind their backs to do anything or gain more power for himself. He trusts these people, and they trust him. And that's always something I liked about the League of Villains, where it's like, these are, I don't know if I want to call them friends, but they're like this weird family and have like this weird alignment in ideals and what they want to achieve and goals and everything. And it's really interesting. And they become like this tight-knit group that trusts each other. And I always like that about them. And they extend on that in this arc. I don't know how you felt about them in general.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, the characters themselves go, yeah, I do like, the weird to say that they have some sort of union, even though they are very chaotic in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
But you get the feeling that to a certain degree, they have, each other's interests in mind. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, even though they're a bunch of wildly evil characters, mm-hmm. and it's
some more than others.
Yeah, it's almost striking me as being evil for the sake of evil. But hey, what are you gonna do? The camaraderie that they all have is there, and it feels significant.
Yes, and like I said, it feels like a rare thing, because in a lot of superhero stuff or whatever, you have like these villains who are very backstabby. And, once someone tries to get they always try to one-up each other. And then, you got a cool villain that maybe gets killed off by another villain because he's like, no, I am the puppet master, whatever. And I don't get the feeling that this is happening with this group. It might happen at some point. I don't know. Maybe what happens at the end of the show will lead to a falling out between these characters. But I don't get the feeling right now. And up to this point, it was always like, no, I feel like these characters mean something to each other. And it's just something I haven't really seen that much with, these kind of archetypal characters. And it's cool, I gotta say, and I like that we get to see more of them and their background in this final act of the season. I just wish they would have spent a bit more time on them.
Yeah, so here's my next complaint. It took I was waiting 25 fucking episodes for something to happen. And did we get there? Yeah, but I was still waiting 25 episodes. I felt like this whole season could have been 12 or 13 episodes easy. There are definitely certain things that could have been compressed. Okay, maybe not down to 12 or 13, but maybe we could have compressed down the training arc to maybe like 5 or 6 episodes, and it would have given us a little bit more time to go forward with the story that comes next.
Yes, maybe. Like I said, I like the fight, and they are breezy enough, but you're right, nothing really happens there aside from getting his new power and getting a bit into that background. And then we get the very slowed down, relatively short apprenticeship arc with Endeavor. And then we get like this, where suddenly, after a bit of build-up and the stuff with Gigantomachia, once the fight starts, this show moves at 1,000,000 miles per hour for some reason. Where it's like, oh shit, we don't have any episodes left. We need to hurry the fuck up. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you so fast suddenly?
This season, it kind of goes back to my, so the first season, obviously was the big establishing one. Here's Midoriya, here's UA, here's, and that was slow as fuck. And then, we pick up the pace in seasons 2 and 3. And 2 and 3 are my favorite of the lot. The first half of 4 is fine. And then the second half of season 4, I didn't care. And then with this season, I was just like looking at my watch the whole time. I pretty much stopped taking notes because I was like, yeah, it's pretty easy to remember the crux of everything that happens because not much happens.
It's true. And I think in some aspects you definitely could have trimmed down the seasons. Like you said, the training arc in the beginning, you didn't have to do one episode for each fight, right?
Or two in some cases.
Yeah, where it's like, no, maybe just do for all of the fights 2 or 3 episodes, and that's it. You don't need to show full fights. I know it's probably in the manga, but you can speed that up. And, some of the highlights were not that necessary and everything. That's totally fine. Some people would have maybe complained, but, not that much is happening in there. And it's fine. You could have sped that up. And then maybe then directly go into the My Villain Academia arc. That also is a bit slow in the beginning, but then picks up the pace. And then once the big fight start, that is very plot driven, slow the fuck down, because I have waited ages to get the full backstory of Toga. I have waited to get any backstory of all of the other characters, and we kind of get backstories for most of them. It's just so fucking fast. Like, they don't even spend like half an episode on Toga's backstory. Not even that, I think. It's just like a third of an episode. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you suddenly so intent on moving so quickly when you've taken so much time for the fucking training arc in the first half of the show? Just at least be consistent in your pacing. What is happening? Why did you spend more time on the stuff that I'm actually interested in? And I like character development, so if they do that, just with the stuff with Endeavor, if the season would have been all that, and they could have taken more time, could have been slower in this fight, it would have been okay for me. And just, focus their key point episodes on the background of these villains. They do it for Tomura, and that is fine. That is a good episode. And we'll talk about a bit about that later. But it's like, in general, the last arc of this, the My Villain Academia arc, was way too fast for me, especially once the fighting starts. It was like... what the fuck? What is happening? Why are you so... I mean, it makes for brisk action entertainment, but I felt like the characters in there drew a bit the end of the short stick here, and I wonder if they're treated so kind of haphazardly in the manga, or if there's more time spent on their backstories and everything, or if it was like, no, we're running out of time and we want to end this arc by by the 24 or 26 episode mark, or 25 episode mark, so we have to speed this shit up. And then I'm like, then maybe fucking put the arc that was actually after this in the manga, after this in the anime, and not put it before it. Why the fuck? Jesus. What again, I don't know why they made that decision. They should have known, like, hey, we don't have enough. That's why you plan this shit out. We don't have enough episodes to tell all these stories, all these character backstories, if we put the fucking Endeavor arc before this. So why not put it in the next season? I don't understand this decision. It's really weird.
I don't
and
man.
That's one of the detriments, where it's like this pacing goes from, okay, no plot relevance whatsoever, which is fine, but they spend way too much time on that. Then they could go into great character development, which I love, but that are not a lot of episodes. Then they switch over to the villains, and once things are going, they're going way too fast. So the pacing is all over the place. And it would have, I feel like they could have circumvented some of that stuff if they went with the original chronology here. And it's a super weird decision. I don't understand it. But yeah, again, let's try to highlight the good stuff that this is in this final arc. Again, of course, the fights are cool. They are brutal. We get some interesting backstories, a small insight into how All for One wormed his way into Tomura's life by being the only one who gave him some affection and emotional refuge after Tomura killed his whole family. Even his dog, which is weird because that corgi is one of the specters that haunts him, but there is no paw among those hands of his family Tomura carries around with him all the time.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's weird. They left out the dog, but they killed him anyway, so what the fuck? So Tomura has come to the conclusion that he wants to eradicate all of humanity, basically, which is a solid supervillain ambition, if a bit cliche. Although I'm willing to give the guy a break because he is literally being strangled by his trauma every day of his life.
Yeah.
which All for One forced on him to manipulate him instead of helping him to work through it. But, it's there. And we also, like I said, learn how fucked up Toga really is. Like, she upgrades too and learns how to not only use the appearance of people she copies, but also their powers. In this case, Ochako's gravity powers, I believe. I think she uses them more effectively than Ochako at this point. She's basically just fucking smashing a bunch of the characters from the Meta Liberation Front to fucking bits by letting them fall from the sky. You obviously never see this kind of bloodshed from the heroes. So this is a refreshing change of pace. And I like how worried Twice is about Toga, which is this family stuff I mentioned before.
Yeah.
This dynamic in the League of Villains. Twice, especially, is my favorite character in the League of Villains. He's just awesome. I love this idea that he has these personalities at odds inside his head, and they always have to basically verbalize their conflict, so each side of them says something different all the time, which could be annoying, but to me it never was. I always laughed when he says something and then says something completely different to that aspect regard.
The inner voice is constantly coming out.
Yes, exactly. It's a super fun idea, and again, he seems to be the guy who most cares about his teammates, right? Because they pulled him out of his shithole that he was in and made him feel safe again and made him feel like he was whole again. It feels like he really cares for him. Toga also cares for him. And, it makes sense in regards to their characters too, because deep down, people like Tomura, Twice, and Toga just want a place where they belong, because they didn't have that before they got to the League of Villains. They are all deeply damaged people that now found a kind of community and a kind of family that they can relate to and that they can feel safe in being in their presence, and they feel protected. So, it makes total sense that they would care for each other, since they still have this longing for belonging. And yeah, this is cool. I liked it. Twice backstory is even more sad than we thought. We get a more extended view on that as well. Which also, again, too fast. But seeing Toga under threat of being killed lets him get over his trauma and realize his full power to great effect. Sadman's parade is awesome. I love that scene. I thought that was fucking great, where he multiplies into millions of Twices and just runs everyone over. I love him so much, and how fiercely loyal he is to his friends. Like, it's truly one of the absolute best and most likable characters in the show. And he's one of the villains.
Yeah.
How do you feel that? It's great. This is great character writing, and I gotta give it to Horikoshi for that. In general, it's interesting how damaged all the members of the League of Villains are. Like I said, Toga's origin is really fucked up. Twice is also really bad. Dabi's flames constantly burn his own body, which is why he looks the way he does. And, of course, Tomura Shigaraki has so much baggage she could load up a mile-long freight train with it.
Man.
It's really something.
They finally showed the significance of the hands. Oh, man.
Yes, we finally learn Shigaraki, formerly Tenko Shimamura's backstory. And it's much more horrifying than I could have imagined. Like, his dad was an asshole who couldn't deal with his mom. So, Shigaraki's grandma and the previous bearer of One for All, before All Might, that she left him behind to beat some villains, probably All for One, who probably killed her. So that's kind of all like a vicious cycle here. Did the show make a clear statement on that already, that All for One killed her? But I think so, right?
I don't recall clearly, but possibly.
Yeah, maybe. So I assume that is what happened, and then he went and basically took over Tomura's life to make him his tool. Anyway, Tenko's or Tomura's dad abused him anytime he went against the rules, and one of the rules was not to talk about heroes. His mom didn't protect him, neither did his grandparents. His sister was too scared of their father, so she rather protected herself and shifted any blame to Tenko. He was also suffering an allergy that made his skin itch constantly, which I don't think was physical, but psychosomatic instead, and related to the psychological damage his dad inflicted on him. So it makes sense that when his power manifests in his darkest and most desperate moment, and he accidentally kills his dog, he is so scared and distraught that he kills his whole family, and only when he kills his dad, which he really wants to destroy, his itch disappears. If you remember from earlier seasons, that itch always reappears when he is antagonized, stressed, or is confronted with something that makes him remember his terrible past.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the first season, when he's irritated when he confronts All Might, who he considers one of the reasons that, the way he is, and that fucked up his life, he just constantly is scratching at his neck. And once the plan doesn't go his way, he does that. He just gets really just fucking tears out the flesh from his body, basically. It looks gross. And, that's great that they brought that up and actually gave us a reason for that. This is so fucked up that he literally can't live in his own skin. So it's really fucked up.
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, oof.
Yeah, so the show doesn't pull any punches here. Not only see we Tomura's face contorted in the most maniacal and terrifying way, but also after he crumbles his family members' bodies into tiny parts, they turn back into flesh and blood and are just a bloody puddle of human, and in one case, animal remains. It's really gross and horrific stuff. I didn't expect My Hero Academia to go full gore, but it went there. And holy shit, was it dark and effectful. And in that state, Tenku / Tomura, of course, was a willing recipient for All For One's manipulating words, facilitated by the fact that All For One was the only one willing to reach out to him. Everyone else was afraid of him, right? So, and in regards to his new name, Tomura apparently is derived from the Japanese word for to mourn, and Shigaraki apparently is All For One's real last name. The more you know. Wonder how that will come into play. So yeah, he basically made him his adopted son. And yeah, in that final clash when against Redestro, who, by the way, Redestro's power is he can turn any kind of stress into power. So that quirk would make me unstoppable.
I wish I had that fucking power.
That's amazing. This is the first thing I had to think of. Is oh my god. I could fucking lift a train. Anyway, so so when he fights him, and it's basically he's already kind of totally, his body is totally ravaged and everything, and he's kind of almost at his wit's end, and then he finally remembers his repressed past and is finally able to let go of it. In the worst way possible, of course. Mm-hmm. He finally becomes the unrestrained monster that All For One intended him to be. Not dragged down by past decisions, wishes, legacies, or misgivings. He's just gonna do what he wants from now on, even if it means to destroy everything. This is what frees his mind and clears the way for him to become even more powerful. And he looks genuinely relieved and truly happy in the moment he turns the entire city to dust. It's terrifying and amazing. I thought this scene was really, really well done. Like this whole episode where we see his background and then, him becoming the ultimate villain, the ultimate bad guy. And you really wonder if there is any way back from that, because he now has found a way to basically relish in his past experiences and turn them into power and not dragging him down anymore, but not in a positive way.
Yeah. I get the feeling this is their way of saying at this point he's too far gone.
I don't even know. Do they say do they do the splash page thing where it says Tomura Shigaraki Origin or something like that? I don't remember. But
that was an episode title.
Yeah, it could have been that, where it's like, and it only appears when he has that realization, when he finally gains his full power. And then I think it says that on the screen. It says Tomura Shigaraki Origin, where it's like, no, everything we saw up to this point was just his origin story. And this is, now he has finally become Shigaraki. Now he has finally, that is his villain name, right? He doesn't have another, does he have an alias? I don't remember.
I don't believe so.
Right, he's just Shigaraki, I think. And then he finally becomes that character. All of that happens before this which was I think a pretty great twist, because usually you only see that for the heroes. But all of the arcs that he was part in were his origin story. Not only, him killing his parents and everything, but he hadn't reached his full potential yet, his full power yet, and his villain state of mind yet. He was still, caught between past experiences and his psychological baggage, and was All Might wanted for him, and his feelings for All Might and not All Might, All for One and everything. But now he finally let go of his past self and became what he was destined to become since he met All for One, which is terrible, but it's also great the way the show handles it, because it's, no, we watched for the past seasons, while watching Deku's origin story, we also watched Shigaraki's origin story, and now he has become the ultimate foe, the ultimate nemesis, the ultimate villain, the ultimate opposite to Deku and his final arch nemesis, arch villain. And it's great. I thought that was great. I just wish they would have taken more time with this. They wouldn't have fucking squeezed it in here so much. I mean, I feel like they take enough time for his particular episode because it's one entire episode. But everything that came before it with the other villains, they all deserved at least half an episode for their background story, if not an entire episode. I would have loved an entire episode on Spinner, an entire episode on Dabi, an entire episode on... I think we haven't even gotten Dabi's full backstory yet. But, entire episode on Toga's backstory, entire episode on Twice extended backstory, all of that. I would have loved to see that. And I wouldn't have felt like it would have dragged the pacing of this show down as much as some other parts of this show, of this season did.
And it definitely would have been a better use of time. Yes,
absolutely. So my choice would have been maybe condense the training arc in the first half of the show down to a couple of episodes. Put the Endeavor arc where it belongs, after the war against the Meta Liberation Front, before the war against the Paranormal Liberation Front, whatever. You know what I mean. Yeah. Put it after My Villain Academia, before the next big war that is apparently on the horizon is going to happen in season 6. That's where it belongs. And then you could have spent all the rest of the time of the season to just fully concentrate on the villains. Just, go all in on that. Just give us all the meat on the League of Villains Bones. And it would have made the characters and what comes next in the next season so much stronger, because it would have been so much more well-defined characters that we have gotten so attached to and spent so much time on. I mean, I'm super attached to Twice. So whatever happens to him, I'm super engaged with. I'm super terrified that he will die. So at least we got that. But, spend some more time on Toga, spend some more time on Spinner, spend some more time on Dabi. Everyone. I'm glad they already got as much screen time as they did, because that's rare for the villains. But give me more. Mm-hmm. I would have still liked to see more. Maybe we'll get more. But, they could have put more into that instead of wasting time with other stuff in this season. So I agree with you in that regard, that some of the stuff could have been condensed, could have been skipped over, and there's just, instead of fucking running out of time in the final arc and then speeding up the stuff that is really interesting so much that it kind of suffers a bit from that. So that's a bit of a bummer, I gotta say. But I gotta say, I don't know how you ultimately felt about the season compared to the other seasons. I still liked it. I have my misgivings about some of the stuff, but there is just enough in there that I liked, and I'm gonna keep watching. I don't know what that is. Probably my ultimate question towards you: has this season turned you off so much of My Hero Academia that you will refrain from checking out the 6th one if it rolls around, or is it like, yeah, sure, I'll give it another chance? Or is it like, no, part 2 of season 4 was already meh, and now season 5 has annoyed me so much. I was constantly looking at my watch, like you said. So is it like, okay, no, I'm done with this. This has become too badly paced for me.
I want this show to... All right. I don't hate Hero Aka. I don't hate it. Before anyone jumps on me on it, what I hate is they introduce a billion characters that don't matter, and they go away immediately, and there's nothing meaningful to them. I hate that they can't get the pacing right. And I hate that I was just this whole season, like I said before, I was waiting for something to happen. And when it finally did, I was borderline like I almost just don't care at this point. So I don't know if I would watch another season of this. I feel like I've fallen into the spot where I pretty much know what I want to watch, but I also get that, hey, there's also new stuff out there that's worth checking out, and I don't want to take that away from myself either. But time is a commodity.
Exactly, time management, and if you feel like, okay, I'm not 100% behind the show, and I losing more and more interest into finding out what it ultimately leads to and everything, then you need to be. Might need to make the brave decision to just cut your losses and just fucking run. So it's, especially for a show that might be running for a good long while, considering, My Hero Academia is probably going to be around for a while longer. I don't think that Horikoshi is anywhere near of. I don't know if he has said anything to that regard of if he's gonna like wrap the story up in the near future, or if he's just still there full on gear in the deepest plots shit. So I don't know how much more seasons this is gonna have, but this is already more seasons than a lot of other anime get. Especially seasons, mostly shonen series that run consistently long without breaks. This is one of the few shonen things that has a lot of seasons. I think JoJo's would be the next, but that is based on mostly finished source material for now anyway.
Right.
So, Araki's gonna do a new one apparently, yep. But we still have, after Stone Ocean, we still have two more arcs to go. So, and these are finished. No, three more. No, two more.
Yeah, two more. Just
two more. Jojo Run and Jojo Lion. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that just wrapped up. So, that's a bit of a different thing for My Hero Academia, just like with stuff like One Piece, which just had its 1,000th episode.
Oh my god. Whoa.
Kidding though, congrats to Oda, because few make it that long without, losing the interest of the audience. And, here we are.
Every time I think about trying to get into One Piece, the number gets larger and larger, and I'm like...
Wait for the Kai version. Honestly, John, if you ever want to try it, or fucking read the manga.
I know there was a fan cut version called, I think...
Paste One Piece,
One Pace or Paste One
Piece. Yeah.
So, and if I was going to get into the anime, that's probably the route I would take.
Yes, that's the wise choice. Absolutely. I didn't download that version, but if I wanted to archive it eventually fully, and if it was all available, I would go that way, because there's just too much filler in this show. And that's my favorite anime love-hate relationship is One Piece, because there's so much shit and there was like, Jesus fucking Christ, get to the fucking point. And then there are episodes and there was like, this is the best anime I've ever seen. So... and it's gonna keep on doing that way, because there was also episode 1000 to a T, where it's like there was so much cool shit in there, but also shit where it's like, okay, maybe get to the fucking point. When a show fires on all cylinders, it fires on all cylinders, especially in the character department, because One Piece has one of the best written world and characters I've ever seen in anime. But it's a whole lot, and if you come across a show like that has the potential to be that big, you really want to make the decision at some point if you're going to stick with it or if you're just going to drop it. And for One Piece, I made the decision to stick with it, and I'm going to stick with My Hero Academia. I didn't stick with fucking Boruto. I stuck with Naruto Shippuden, and I stuck with Bleach, but, you could argue that Bleach was a lot of waste of time.
Wasn't literally half of Naruto filler? Literally half.
Yes. Well, I didn't watch all the filler that came before, after the finals actual canon manga stuff from the original series, and when it then switched over to Shippuden, because there was like after that there was like 100 episodes of filler or something. I didn't watch those because I know there was filler. I just took a giant break of Naruto and then continued with Shippuden. So, but yeah, these are the shows that usually the big shonen shows usually continue for a long time, and My Hero Academia is kind of the outlier in that it is just interrupted. It's just normal season format. So that's interesting, and it feels like that it might not become too overbearing too quickly.
Hero
and also
has apparently had a grand total of 4 filler episodes, so good on them for that much at least.
Yeah, so there you go. And yeah, that might help it to not overstay its welcome, or to not get dragged down by it. But even then, My Hero Academia also has pacing problems, like we said in this season. Sometimes can't figure itself out, even if there isn't any filler in there, or anime only filler at least. So we'll see how it goes. I'll stick with it, but I also can totally understand if season 6 rolls around and you're like, after that kind of mixed or negative experience with most of season 5, I'm like, I maybe wait until it's finished and see how the reviews for this season are. If they say, man, this is as good as season 2 or 3, then maybe binge the fuck out of that season again and try get back into it. But I don't know. I will stick with it because I'm afraid if I drop it now, I might have a problem to pick it up later.
I also don't like binging stuff because, the first 12 episodes of Stone Ocean dropped on Netflix just today, and it's like, that's a lot at once.
Well, just watch one episode per day or something. That might make it easier.
That's what I'll do, I guess.
Yeah, it's fine. Or one episode a week. I mean, you could still make it a weekly show.
It's true.
Because it will probably be 12 weeks until they drop the next batch. So it's no JoJo is only 12 season is only 12 episodes.
No.
So, and Stone Ocean is apparently one of the longer arcs. So I assume it's gonna be at least 24, probably 36 or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were talking something about the 30s.
Yeah, so there you go. So 3 normal size seasons. So probably gonna watch that show until summer, assumedly so. So it's gonna be a while until we talk about Stone Ocean, everyone. But yeah, what comes next looks interesting. And my hope for My Hero Academia season 6 is that everything that was a negative aspect of these previous seasons kind of still pays off in the coming ones, as in that all the characters we've met, all the, all this time we spent in the training arc on our side characters and everything, that pays off in the big war that is now apparently coming up, and it's going to dominate most of what My Hero Academia will be for the coming seasons, is the war against the Meta Liberation Front. Meta Paranormal Meta Front. What the fuck are these names?
Oh, thank you, My Hero Academia wiki, for coming in clutch. Apparently, the Meta Liberation Army is based on the real-life Tate Nokai group, led by a man named Yukio Mishima, also known as Kimitake Hiraoka. And they carried out this incident in 1970 where they tried to take over a military outpost and failed, with Mishima committing suicide and the rest of the group getting arrested or, just kind of vanishing away. And that this particular cadre of villains is most definitely based around the Brotherhood of Mutants.
Oh, so again, that matches the Magneto stuff I talked about earlier, right? So,
and regarding terminology, when they refer to their own powers as superpowers or meta abilities, that's apparently a throwback to old phrases used in retro comics in the real world when talking about powers. So there we go. They're just trying to keep it retro, bro.
Yes, I mean it's clear that Horikoshi is going super hard for classic comic book stuff. And yeah, like I said, maybe we'll now get all of our favorite characters actual plot relevant stuff when the big war breaks out and shit goes down, and that would be great. And then we have a bunch of characters that we learn more about in a story context and everything. So I'm willing to still give My Hero Academia the benefit of the doubt, and whatever It means that X Day is coming. Sigma, is that you? Well, I don't fucking know, but we'll see. And it's threatening enough just by what it's teasing and everything. And we can get Deku's new power set and whatever, and we finally hopefully learn what all the deal with All for One is and One for All and everything else. So yeah, I'm gonna keep watching. I haven't lost interest yet, and we'll see what happens with you, John. Do we have any final words on this season?
I just wish that the pacing was better, because like I said, I started off tired, and then I just got bored, and I just want things to be denser in stories and told more concisely. That's what I value out of a story. Get to the point. That's what I want.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. But not too fast, please. Please give the characters that we care about and that are interesting enough time to shine the spotlight, and don't rush their fucking background stories to death, which is what they did in the final stretch of the season. So yeah, definitely not the strongest season. I would probably put it on the same level as season 4. For me, it has more interesting plot and character beats in its second half than season 4 had in general, but it's dragged down by incredibly uneven pacing, which could have been prevented easily if they had just followed the normal timeline of events established in the manga, in my opinion. But ultimately, I still liked it. I think there's enough in here to enjoy, like the upped animation quality compared to season 4, the character drama around Shoto and Endeavor, Tomura's backstory, Bakugo in general, as usual. I dug, and twice. Sorry, good boy, twice. He's not a dog. What the hell?
Hey, you can be a good boy without being.
Yeah, this is true.
I still think Deku's a good boy. So
Deku is also very good boy. That is absolutely true. I dug all of that stuff, and as season 5 has not deterred me from watching the next season of My Hero Academia yet. We'll see about what season 6 does. But that's just me, and I'm a sucker for superheroes. QED, what you gonna do? And that is a wrap on the 122nd episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut.
Take care, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
When your life is eternal and you're surrounded by death,
the memories you made along the way become the true core of your existence.